Well, welcome everyone. We are so excited to have you here for the Night Watch Master Integrator series. Today, we will be joined by Motorola Solutions to discuss the panic button ecosystem. And so my name is Paige Niven. I'm the marketing manager here at Night Watch, and I'm also your Night Watch host for the day. So you may be wondering why we do this. And in today's fast evolving world, staying ahead in security requires expert insights, practical strategies, and real world solutions. So this series is designed to bring you helpful information, best practices, innovations, and actionable tips to enhance your organization's security systems. So without further ado, get ready to learn, engage, and take your expertise to the next level. I would like to introduce from Motorola Solutions, Chris Carrillo, Rave Senior Strategic Account Executive. Take it away, Chris.
Thanks for the wonderful introduction, Paige. So as we go through this, guys, there's going to be probably a few different things that may catch your eye that we want to talk through and kind of navigate. So by all means, if there's any point in here, ask a question, just chime in and interrupt. It won't throw me off. This is all for you guys. So we want to make sure that we kind of cover these things holistically. So in the ecosystem, panic button ties into kind of the entire game plan a little bit differently. I'm going to go with the assumption that we haven't really delved too deep into Orchestrate. So I'm going to kind of go backwards a little bit and explain to you what Orchestrate is and kind of how it ties our ecosystem together. So we'll be jumping back and forth on a couple of different things. One, we want you guys to see the interaction. This will be my phone. You'll see me bring this in periodically. We'll be dedicating a lot of our conversation to panic button today. So this is what we call RCV. So this is our Rave Command Center. This is where a lot of your triggers will come in. There are different instances. One of the tools that makes our platform so powerful is we do have a municipality overlay that we provide to whether it's sheriff department, your police department, whatever that might be. The mapping tool, you'll see this is just kind of some of our sites and internal users that have this throughout. So if you guys were doing, a school district, it may be more centered around one county and you still have your multiple schools. This Dallas section is a good example of what that might look like, as you see they kind of start to separate. Here in Dallas, we have some different, organizations, and we get really granular on this, okay? What Orchestrate is Orchestrate uses our panic solution to tie in multiple instances. And this is, again, just to kind of give you guys an overview. We'll get into this a little bit, I'm sure. But I'm going to open up this Orchestrate instance, which ties in all of our solutions to a visual firearm detection. So if you guys had our analytics or something on your VMS, if we were to pick up a video firearm detection or visual firearm detection, so somebody wielding a weapon, we have the ability to tie our ecosystem into actionable items. So here we're triggering off, right? If somebody's validated this, we're going to trigger off a access control. We're going to lock down some of those doors so that individual can't come in. We're creating an incident to manage that situation. We're using the Rave mass communication to send out an active assailant protocol, right? Run, fight, hide, whatever that might be. We're triggering some communication to wave radios. And again, we're going to email our controller or our C-suite, whoever that might be, all in one instance, right? So if we wanted to, on top of that, possibly send out a BOLO, this is how our system works. Once we've created these systems, we can tie in additional functionalities to create a workflow. So lots of things that we talk about through the ecosystem. When I'm having panic button conversations, not only are we talking through the app, which is this functionality here, we also go through things like Halo. We talk about an entire ecosystem. We have wearable solutions and all that tie together. We're going to stick to the app here because it's our core functionality. One of the big differentiators between the Rave system is we have that two-way communication compatibility. So whether this is a security team, your SOC, in a school district, maybe it's the home office managing some of these things, whatever that looks for. I have the lock screen on mine. That's an optional feature that you can use or not. When you get into, this is our interaction, right? So we have a list of series events that are coming in here. Here in a second, you'll see it pop. when we trigger one of these instances, so right now I'm mashing it kind of like a video game, right? We're going to prevent any false alarms from going out. So you do have to hold the button down for about 1.5 seconds. So I'll do so now. When that trigger goes off, the first thing that we do for that individual is we're going to automatically connect them to 911, right? I'm not sure if you guys can hear my audio, but in the background, this tool can live either in a section of a SOC or in the background on somebody's computer just for them to monitor as they're coming through. But you can see my icon that's come through. Again, I still have my phone device here. From the phone functionality, anybody that has the app as either a security team member or an associate, I have mine on presentation mode, so it's not popping up. But you can see on my device, I've been notified as a team member that we have an active situation in this area. Through wearables, we get a little bit more metadata on there, right? Who is the individual? What's the room? In the app, we're just getting kind of the lat longitude of where that instance is at. But again, just wanted you guys to kind of see, again, that communication has already gone out. The other thing we do is tie that into our mass communication. So when you're looking at our mass comms, we're talking about anybody who may not be aware of the situation or offsite. So if I go back to that school situation, in triggering the button, we've notified other teachers, hey, we have an active situation. You may want to take whatever protocol you have. If we're notifying anyone outside of that institution, whether that's again, your C-suite, your school district, management team, whatever that might be, we're using those other functionalities to tie in. Again, through mass communications or through our rave alert system, we can trigger things like PA systems, strobe lights, sirens, any of those other things that we have as part of those modalities. So there is some cross functionality there. Now, while this has gone off, I'll move my phone here for a second. The initial thing that I have is as that notifications come through, we have two options. We can start a chat with that individual to find out what's going on in that facility, right? Can you tell me more about your situation? Or are you able to talk, for that example? More about your situation. This is directed directly at the individual who is now on the phone with 911. The red box here is details about our facility, right? Who's the main contact? If you have knockbox or access codes for those stores or for those buildings, we can communicate and help share that information out. This information is also shared with the PSAP, okay? So they have the ability to kind of get this access control, notify responders, hey, here's an access code to get in so you don't have to break the door or whatever that might be. Through our site map, we're going to get more additional information here. Right. So what you're looking at is this is all built on the back end. So if we had multi-campus, the red box is going to be your facility and what you've named that facility. If we were talking about a school, maybe you have multiple campuses here. We've got the football field or something else over here. You can identify any of those buildings themselves to tie direct communication, or again, you could just have one large campus. The blue box is going to be your perimeter. So in some cases, that might be your full campus, your parking garage, your parking lot, whatever you want to have covered in this situation. So in order to trigger these communications, they have to be inside this blue box for that to action. So if they're at home trying to use the panic button, this system is not designed for that specifically. This is only going to protect the campus and the people on that campus that you're responsible for. So as those communications come back and forth, we can continue to respond and coordinate. Your PSAP, if they're tied into this system, will also have access to monitor and add additional communications. Hey, fire trucks are on their way. Don't worry, we got you covered, whatever those things might be. And we also have the ability to request a video connection. So in the event that maybe it's a choking or a heart attack and somebody doesn't know how to use an AED, we can share video and help walk them through the situation or provide additional resources. So, in an essence, these are the main functionalities of what you'd see. On your quick send message, it allows you as a dispatcher to be able to send targeted communications. So if this was a medical emergency, we've got the ability to just send out communications to everyone. Hey, we've got a medical emergency on the 3rd floor. Please keep the elevators clear. Or again, in a choking or heart attack situation, maybe we only want to send something to our responders and anybody that's medically certified, and we would send them a direct communication. So this isn't going to necessarily give you communication back from the field. The only person that we're targeting is whoever's had that conversation or whoever's triggered that event to be able to kind of direct that communication. All right, so from here, the next tool that we'll bring up and share with you guys is our wearable. Okay, so for those of you that are in the K through 12, you've got Alyssa's Law and some other stuff. We have the ability from a wearable standpoint, we basically place beacons throughout the facility, depending on how granular they want to get. We've just done broad scope where you have a large auditorium and we're putting 1 or 2 beacons just to get location services inside that auditorium. We've also gone as far as to put these deployed through medical facilities where you're getting nurse aid in a hospital. And we've even been able to target specifically beds in the ER. And you guys have seen sometimes those are, that's just a curtain separating. So we can get very granular. On these, we have a beacon that it's a little button that you can carry around and press, or you could hard mount these underneath a desk or however you want to do that. This is a lanyard. So on the other side is your ID card. As they come up, don't forget to put your burning questions. Oh, got it. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a question. Thanks, Paige. So again, we have a couple different components. We have also tested this on a TLK25, which is a small radio, really good for hospitality. I've combined these in some of my conversations with schools as well, just because it gives you additional communication. So maybe your police officer on site is checking one of those radios out while he's monitoring traffic coming in and out. Your janitors may have these because they'll see something from outside prior to. Again, there's a wide variety of ways that we tie these different things in. On the wearables, they do have connection redundancy. So all of these are being charged or running on a battery life. The pucks themselves will have so they're going to run off of the network and the gateway that we have installed. If for whatever reason there's a power outage or that fails or there's no internet connection, they also come with a triple SIM. And for those that don't know what that is, it's basically an aggregated SIM card that runs off of T-Mobile, Verizon, and AT&T to connect to whatever network is best. Those are also built into the gateway with a battery charger. So if the power does go out, that is still going to run off of a separate network and connect to that system independently. So lots of redundancy built into the platforms. Again, in those broader conversations through the ecosystem, we look at things like our Halo devices that do, gunshot detection. It's got vape detection or different chemicals, right? So utilities use those pretty often. If there's a chemical leak, if a window gets broken, if there's a ruckus, there's all kinds of things that's for. And then there's also our Sentry ERS system. So as we get into true panic button discussions, what I like to explain here is we're getting a wide range of what that institution wants, right? The mobile button may be great. In your schools, again, we now have unions that are wanting either Alyssa's Law compliance to have a wearable, or you have unions that just say, hey, look, we're not downloading anything. We don't want you guys tracking what we're doing. We don't do that, but in fear of that, we still have these wearables and other solutions that we can tie in. So from this aspect, the other thing that we always want to talk about with our institutions is what's their relationship with their municipality. We have a backhaul system. Let me see if I can bring a couple of those up for you guys real quick. So this would just be a dispatch call. For those of you that know, so when you typically call a 911 center, what you're getting off of those is they got their dispatch, right? You have a call that comes in. So as these calls come in, I'll switch this profile real quick. Our Rave 911 suite provides a database communication for those individuals to get different data, right? So if a panic button's triggered, we're adding our backhaul in there to add additional communications. I'll use somebody a little bit better. Let's go to Smithfield. What you'll get in some of these conversations is profile data. So if you have a person that's deaf, right? They can't talk on the phone. This will automatically prompt that caller or that dispatcher that they've got, they're hearing impaired, so we can use the chat functionality to communicate with them. If this was an elderly person and they were calling, you get that Aliani, but we also know that this person's got dementia, so they may be lost, but we have other additional information. This tool becomes super powerful, again, when we're looking at the ability for a dispatcher to send out directed communication. So we have different softwares that also tie into this to give eyes on site. So in this particular, I'll take a step back for a second. We're directing communication, but if a caller had called in and said, hey, I'm going to bomb the facility, or I've had enough, they're calling in a threat of any kind, we can pull up location and locate and services around them. And the dispatcher has the ability to send out a communication to those schools and say, hey, you may have an active threat. You may want to lock down until we send you the all clear. The other aspect to that is a program called Rave Link. We can link communication. So as the dispatcher is taking in their call here and they're adding notations, if that location is within a vicinity of a school, or say there's incoming calls for rioting, we can also pull that information into here, and that would send out a notification on the behalf of the dispatcher without them having to take any extra steps. So lots of cross functionality that we build into this tool. One of the scenarios that I like to paint is in our CC Aware platform. We can bring agnostic computers, video screens, VMS, and radio communications to manage a situation. The example I use is we had a museum in Maryland that they did not have our software. They were using some of our VMS, and they had put CC Aware up there for for situational awareness and what things that may happen on their site. The PSAP had our Rave 911 software. And what had happened in that situation is there was a gentleman in the middle of the museum. He had a heart attack, and obviously people around him start dialing 911. As that call comes into the PSAP, and the gentleman, that dispatcher is taking in the notes, what's the situation, what's going on, that trigger in that instance automatically brought up their CC Aware programs, brought their cameras and their radios into their SOC view. So they immediately knew where that individual was at and were able to get their medical staff to that gentleman within 2 minutes. And it took the municipality, it took responders 16 minutes to get there. That was a life-changing instance, right? So when we talk about our ecosystem and the ability to pull a lot of these things, there's a lot of power in what we can do and help automate. When we come back to just our panic button solution and the ability to map any of these instances, right? Our Halo system, our mobile panic button for two-way communication and support, any of these disparate devices, we can now trigger, have communication, and your speed to response is a lot faster. So again, there's a broad array of how these things work together. In its essential form, this is really what they're going to interact with and what they're going to see as they're managing situations and rolling back between different conversations or incidents that have happened. The other nifty thing we just added to the platform and is a differentiator compared to some of our competitors, let me pull this back up real quick, is we also have the ability now, which just came through, our ability to put our system into a test mode. So even if you had a school and they wanted to run a fire drill and make sure that their response is actual, you can put our system into drill or practice mode. And I think we have a couple instances that have been popped up. The screen's a little slow today. Let me zoom out. But again, you can now put your system into a test mode. We should have had some up here. Yeah, it's not doing it. Anyway, so you can put this into your test mode. You could test locations and some of your status checks with people. And then we also have, so in typical form, when you have a wearable solution, that wearable isn't going to do anything other than you're pressing the button. In some cases, they'll have press 3 for, staff assist, or press 5 for, an active shooter type situation. In a lot of cases, what we see is people are just mashing that button. So that is something that you want to have conversations around. What is your intent? What is, how are you guys responding and how do you guys coordinate? But the other feature in here is your staff assist, where you can pre-build what those communications will look like. So if you had somebody at the front desk that needed assistance, excuse me, or you had a teacher that was maybe having a disgruntled student or what have you, you can send out communications to your security team just to get assistance, right? So again, the tool itself is very purpose built. There are enhancements coming out soon that will make these buttons customizable for institutions. That was another feedback request that we got, and this is basically how we develop and evolve our app, is through customer feedback. So in today's world, these buttons are locked, right? This is what it is out of the box, and this is what you get. But in an upcoming update, I believe it's the beginning of Q4, these will have custom form-built communications that you guys can use for internal use cases. But again, we do always want to ask the question, is this intended for internal use? Are you guys trying to engage with your municipalities in your area? You can, if you're on a border of maybe like your sheriff's department and your police station, you can submit to both. It's just a simple process on the back end of the console. Once we've built out your geofences and your maps, we would pull the locations nearest you, and then you would submit a request for them to monitor. This is how we validate what's coming into those municipalities to ensure that you're getting the right support as needed. And again, some corporations want to keep everything internal for their SOC purposes. Outside of what I've covered, in higher detail, I'm going to defer over to Thomas to see if he thinks there's anything that I've missed. But at a very high level, that's a lot of the different functionality and the different resources that we pull into it. Again, I want to be respectful of time. So, we've already gone through, I think you guys are already familiar with the RAVE system and how we tie into that. There are other mapping tools that we bring other institutions together, but for I think all intents and purposes of what we were discussing on the panic button, that's really my high level overview of what the system is and what it does.
We do have a few questions for you.
Yep.
You've talked about it in the high level overview. One of the things, because we've got several different industries on this call or this webinar. How do panic buttons or vape sensors, etc., integrate with existing security systems or communications platforms?
So we do now have an open API. We have different tools that we use to bring that stuff together. So in our APIs, if you're looking at pushing that out, so we use a cap feed to push out the communication from our panic button. So you can create a listener that would ingest that information to give you maybe other notifications. Internally, we have a tool called Rapid Deploy that we could take multiple. I'll use Waste Management for anybody that knows the big golf tournament out there. You can set up a mapping tool that brings all these resources in together, right? So if you had sheriff's department on their radios, you had your police department, any of those different things, it's going to show those locations on there. You can create an overlay map that says, here's my first aid booth, here's where these things are, right? So you had all these disparate groups working in one instance, right? You had volunteers with radios that could trigger off of a radio into a panic button. So we have tools that will bring all that stuff together. Halo, our panic button, are independent solutions that work much broader, right, in the ecosystem. We're able to tie these things natively together. But if you had other things or other, VMS, or I don't know that it would trigger into your VMS, but you could tie this into other mass communications and those type of networks, right? Mapping tools, there's a select reason why Motorola has made the purchases and acquisitions that we've had. We're building out SOCs for large institutions, right? We have higher end CAD systems that would bring in this information. Or again, you would pull a tool like CC Aware that is agnostic, right? CC Aware and Inform, you don't need to have Motorola products. You could have Genetec, you could have Milestone, you could have a different access control, and those triggered notifications would go into those platforms. So separate from panic button, and I think the true question that you had, but we do have other platforms that we can bring all this information and cast that out for you.
You touched on this a little bit, but what is a typical response time once the panic button or Halo sensor has been activated, and how is the alert escalated?
So the escalated is all based on what you're working through. So we have incident management platforms that we help with workflows, if that's what you're looking for. What is affected, what gets brought in, anything from business continuity to crisis management, weather alerts. We have other things to kind of manage that situation. When you're looking at what these systems do, if you're pressing our panic button, I mean, I can do another one if we want to do the show and tell, but again, we're working in a live system. So when that button's triggered, we have the most accurate and reliable solutions. That's how we've been built by Rave, right? So we've been doing this for 19 plus years. There are no faults. There are no delays. I think the highest that we've seen is a 40-second delay in our wearable solution, just because of the gateways that it has to do. We've already worked on some new algorithms to improve that. but it's immediate, right? When we show the instance of our panic button triggering through a phone call to 911 and us getting an institution that has nothing to do with Motorola, right, other than our CC Aware program, and we were able to get a responder there in 2 minutes, that comes down more to the operational piece and logistics. We can send out through Rave Alert 1 million text messages in less than 5 minutes, and all that's tracked through reporting. So we have the highest delivery methods. We have aggregation that, makes sure that happens. We're using a lot of redundancy programs. So I've seen some of our wearable competitors in the panic button space have a 40% fail rate, right? That's just unacceptable. We don't believe in that. There's a reason, again, why we were purchased. And all of these solutions are tied very strategically together to ensure it's working in this instance. If you're taking like a CC Aware or Inform product that is managing the situation, again, very seamless and quick on how we do that, but we're improving that speed to response every single time. Having two-way communication, whether it's the municipality or your SOC team being able to give support, give directional information out, or solicit information from the field, that is something that nobody else is doing right now, right? The ability to tie in your halo and your sensor for a vape detection or gunshot to your camera system having AI that knows that somebody's not supposed to be in this hallway at 2 o'clock at night, being able to control and build workflows that make it easier for your security team to manage is where we've kind of, improved those processes, and we're continuing to develop things to do that. But from the Rave Panic and the Rave alerting system, there's no real delays. I mean, you're looking at seconds for that information to come out. And whether you're doing that in a manned system, so somebody has to validate and then send out a communication, those workflows can be pre-built, or you're just going into a template and sending out further communication. If you want to build that out to be an automated response, again, our directional communication helps. So you got a trespassing and it's triggered onto that back, your southeast corner. We know that we've got security guards there. We can tie that communication to those security guards to investigate immediately. So again, we're eliminating some of that response time and awareness. And then again, from your incident reporting, false alarm, it was a cat, you can still manage. And if it was something more serious, you could create an investigation and some other stuff behind that. So again, lots of things that we do. You can push that out to other information or other tools that you're using. That's more management, but again, the speeds are there.
Okay. So then kind of what I also hear you saying is that these panic button systems can also be customized for different emergencies or medical, or different types of emergencies. So you've got medical or security threats, and then could a little bit more leveled to based on their type.
Yeah, what I would say is, the buttons that are there today are fixed, right? So an active assailant is probably, we're hitting that and everybody needs a run, fight, hide, right? Your medical emergency, that could be directed just to your staff. So you control where these things go. That's the power of the two systems together. The situational awareness will be there, having somebody to send out comms. Essentially, yes, right? It's all controlled in where you want it to go and in what situation. And you can push out a mass notification if you want. Again, if you want to set off sirens, typically in a tornado type event, right, that touches down and we need everybody to know immediately. Hurricane, I live down here in Tampa, we know that stuff's coming. So maybe if there's a flood warning or something of that nature, we want to be aware. So again, there's different ways of communicating at a different time. Our templates and our process allow you to do that. From those icons, again, there's probably a logistical conversation to have with that institution. Again, who's managing this? When a panic button happens, what do you foresee happening? How are you going to manage this? That's where we start to target the communications and say what buttons for what. In our future development, yes, you could say, hey, press this button to call security, press this button to trigger a fire alarm. There will be some different customization. Today, those 5 buttons are all that exist. And logistically, the institution needs to know this is what's going to happen when they have their own process for managing that.
So we do have one more question for you before we conclude for the day. What training and ongoing support does Motorola Solutions offer to ensure staff can use this system effectively?
So that's kind of a two-part, right? So through the sales process, you're going to have, you know, people like me and Thomas come in. We're here to guide the entire conversation. You guys can see just in the brief thing, right? There's a lot of different things that we can connect. So we want to help support you guys in any of the sales process. Once we get to closure, because it's a SaaS software, we do all the heavy lifting for you, right? So I always advise, if you guys have never seen it or gone through it, we can include you in those meetings, include you in some of the trainings as part of that institution. But we handle all training, we handle all implementation, and all ongoing support. So when we constantly send out these updates, because we're, you know, it's software, so we're constantly doing patchwork and updates on the back end, all communications are sent to the end users, whoever that admin might be. Here's the new update. Here's what's being done. Here's a small video on how that works. If you want some additional information, we'll do that. So we have a customer success team that stays in contact with for the life cycle of that individual. You have us for sales and ongoing support. We have a 24/7, 365 dial-in number or an online email. There's even a ticket that you can create straight from the website. So we handle that. Again, it's why we have such one of the highest renewal rates of any organization. At one point, I think it was like 98%. I like to bring that back a little bit because sometimes people leave to try something new, but then they come back. Our statewide deployments are continuously growing, and we have that relationship, right? So when we know one municipality is doing something, we're going to kick that out to everybody else and share that. So, yeah, the support piece we handle for you guys. I mean, we'd love to keep you part of the conversation if you guys so choose, but we all know we're in sales roles, so that's not always the best thing. But yeah, we handle that very sincerely and with a white glove kind of approach.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on today to share more about, you know, the Rave and vape sensors and Motorola Solutions ecosystem regarding panic buttons. This was incredible information, and we really appreciate it. So thank you, Chris and Thomas, for joining us. And thank you to everyone who joined us today for the webinar as well. We hope that you found this session informative and helpful for future decision making for your security systems.